When did we stop singing? When did we stop gathering around the campfire and making music together? When did the song become a spectator sport? Today's guest, Ashana, is here to encourage us to sing once again, use our voices, play music, and gather together again in community. It doesn't have to be perfect to be healing. Join us to find out more.
Soul Nectar Show, the Soul Nectar Show. You're invited, delighted to discover who you are. Anything is possible if you believe. So join us on this beautiful journey. Soul Nectar Show, Soul Nectar Show.
Before we start this episode, I, Carrie Hummingbird,
and I, Akeem Sami,
want you to know that
you are invited.
You're invited to join
Soul
Nectar Tribe.
If you like what you hear on Soul Nectar Show,
You will love being in person with us in Soul Nectar Tribe.
we invite you to check it out. First 30 days is free.
Right now, go to carriehummingbird.com, KERRI, hummingbird.com/membership, and sign up.
We'll see you at our next tribe gathering.
And now, on to the show. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our stories of connection with that which is bigger than us, with the great mystery beyond the veil, with those synchronistic moments that lead us inexorably into a deeper understanding of ourselves and this planet and the galaxies and who we are in truth and love beyond our limited understanding of ourselves. When we first maybe show up and we have the shadow of forgetting, and we might walk around the planet wondering, well, who am I? What am I doing in this body for a while? And then kind of get the hang of life. You know, I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird, and I love to have these conversations about the awakening process and hear different people's stories about how they came to understand themselves in a larger way, a larger context than maybe we start off with in that shadow of forgetting and thinking that we're just the physical body. I remember I thought I was one solid thing, and that was me. It was one solid thing called Carrie. And as I started deepening in my understanding of myself through psychotherapy and some meditation and some other avenues, and always keeping my creative channel open, which I think was such a blessing for my own awakening, keeping that artistic channel open, I realized I am not one thing. Like, I'm so far from one thing. I don't even know how many things I am, but I'm way more than one thing. And I wonder what all those things are that I am, and how do I access all that? And and then I just began this process of dialing back all the places that were really, really rigid and stuck, and coming into more fluidity in my life and in my heart and in my journey. And so I'm always interested in how people get there. And also, there's really beautiful part about my own journey of awakening has taught me that everything that I reveal to myself, every place that I deepen within my own heart, every craggy edge that I smooth with some compassion and self-love, all of that leads to a deeper love and compassion within me that's actually reflected in the sound that I make. And now, isn't that interesting that my sound of my voice reflects my consciousness and my state of being with myself? It's so fascinating. And that sound is where we began. First, there was the word. And think about that for just a second. First, there was the sound of you that you make with your voice. Wow. Powerful. So we're going to dive into sound today, everyone. It's just so exciting. I have a beautiful guest with us today, Ashana, who is a premier healing music artist and new age vocalist of our time, really been doing this for such a long time and creating powerful vocals and that sound angelic and combining that with this celestial sound of alchemy created by crystal singing bowls. So amazing. And now apparently into harps as well. So the journey continues and weaves and winds its way as we explore ourselves through many dimensional aspects of self, and today through sound. So I welcome you, Ashana, to our broadcast today.
Oh, thank you, Carrie. I'm so happy to be here and be with you. It's thrilling.
Really glad to have you here. And, you know, some things you should know about Ashana is that she's actually been hailed by listeners all over the world as breathtaking and a gift from heaven. And, you know, these are things that are hard to accept about yourself at first. It's kind of like, really? I had a friend who used to tell me, your voice sounds like an angel. And I'd say, really? That's so awkward. But, you know, it's one thing that, yes, as we open our hearts and we really sing from the heart, I mean, it's just so healing, so healing. And I know that, Shauna, you have led online group yoga meditations. You've touched the lives of more than 20,000 people in 50 countries. I mean, that's just tremendous healing work that you've been doing, and also teaching crystal bowls. So everybody who's listening to the broadcast today, if you're like, oh my God, I've always wanted to explore crystal bowls, or I've always felt called, you know, here's your opportunity to get to know someone who could be a teacher, you know, for you in this process, because she does teach crystal bowl mastery programs. So tell us a little bit about, I know that you have this really interesting life now. You've all dedicated to this sound and sound healing, and you have a beautiful husband, James Kauai Nui, and to me that indicates some Hawaii going on here.
Yeah,
so much Hawaii.
A lot of Hawaii.
So tell us a little bit, wherever you want to start the story about you know, how you started awakening to all this. I know everyone's going to be fascinated to hear more. So wherever you want to start, let's jump in.
Oh my God. Well, I have to tell you, Carrie, first of all, before we even go there, I love reading your book, The Second Wave. That has just been amazing. I've been so grateful to your insights and the sharings in that, because they've definitely triggered more ahas inside of me. So I'm like, yay. I'm super grateful to be sharing about my process, my journey, but I'm really grateful to be hanging out with you.
It's pretty cool, isn't it? Like, you think, I thought maybe I was insane, you know, writing this book. I'm like, what do I know about galactic beings? And I don't know anything about that. And I just had to trust, you know, it's one of those things, like you take the journey, right? And then other people go, my God, that's so true. It's so rewarding when we can connect on these things. Yeah. So tell me, let's focus on you now, because this is your show. So what do you want to tell us about you?
Well, you know, it's an interesting thing when we talk about sound. And I was, again, you know, I was just reading in your book about how, I think it was your son or who cried for like 6 months. And I was the same way. I was exactly the same way. The story in my family goes is that literally I did not shut up. I cried solid for 6 months. It didn't matter what anybody did. And so it was that coming in was a vocal coming in for me. So I knew from the time I was a very, very young child that I wanted to sing. I wanted to sing. What I realized over the years was that I needed to sing. It was my balancing. It was the place where I could self-soothe. And there was so much going on, you know, like many of us. I did not have an easy childhood. And so singing and sounding, I can remember humming consistently when I was 2 and 3 years old, just constantly. And if I close my eyes or even open my eyes and tune into it, I can still to this day tune in to the self-soothing created by humming when I was just a toddler.
Yeah, I have a curiosity. I mean, this is just a personal curiosity, but through the work of the second wave, I actually realized through some plant medicine ceremonies, where things are more open for me and I can access, that my son is actually the one who cried so badly. He's actually like a 12th dimensional being. And this is like the first time that his kind has been back on the planet in thousands of years. And so I just imagine now, like, gosh, it must be really difficult for some galactic species to come back to this planet after so long. And it might be really painful to experience the shadows that are here at this level of frequency. Does any of that resonate with you as like part of your inner experience of why maybe you cried as a baby so much?
Yeah, that actually resonates a lot, especially in the last few years when I've been connecting more and more with where the sounds come from, that come out of my mouth. When you first introduced me, you said, "Oh, people call me breathtaking and a gift from heaven." I have to tell you that, in some ways, that's like the Ashana persona, that people talk about, that's like that. And then when I'm just like Ashana hanging out in the house, and I read and I hear stuff like that, I go, huh?
I can so relate to that. Yes.
Who are you talking about? because the Ashana, that hangs out in the house, I imagine it's like the Carries hanging out in the house. We're just like doing life. And then I'll go into the studio, or I'll get lost inside playing my bowls or singing or doing something. And these dimensional connections open up. And it feels like home. It feels like it is the most spacious, kind, and I mean like kind, comforting, comfortable, normal. Boy, the word that I hear is resilient, harmonious, balanced, effortless. And when I was recording, it was like a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, I was recording for a project that's coming out next year, the spring of next year. I was very, very conscious of the Orions. And I didn't know anything about Orion energy galactically. I still really don't. But I kept feeling like I was communing and speaking to the Orions while I was singing. So it was this, it's always been a very vertical, it's like a vertical core of light coming down that just expands out. And then inside it, the sound just weaves and moves around it. And then there's a quieting, and then it's over.
I am so curious about this actually, because I've been studying the medicine of the jungle and working with the plants, and been in the jungle with the Shipipo, who sing beautiful Icaros. And I realized during ceremony, one of those times early on, I was like, oh my gosh, they're not like reciting a song. They're not sitting there thinking and practicing a song and having it come through in a beautiful way. They're actually in the moment, and the song is singing them. It's like coming through from some other place beyond the veil that I can't see, that's stepping in to this person and singing this amazing song. And I was praying so hard this last time in the jungle. I was like, please open the song in my heart. I want the song to open my heart. And it actually has started opening. And I find myself in this sort of practicing terrain of allowing the song to come through in healings and not be worried too much about what I'm doing, because my brain is still watching everything like, does that even make sense? What does die, die, die even do? I mean, why are you saying these words, and does it even mean anything? But I want to open that up. How did you have to practice to open that up, or did that just sort of some natural place that you rest into and it just happens through you? How does that show up for you as a channel of this music?
Well, I think it helps to understand that the language of music usually, and this may not be totally true for everyone, but it certainly was true in my case, is that the language of music was kind of, I don't know what the word is really. The language of music has been, okay, what I'm hearing, stroked into place is what I just heard. Okay. The language of music has been stroked into place, and it literally like layered and layered upon layer from the time I was a very, very little girl. And this is true for all of us because as a culture, we are influenced by the music and the sounds that we hear. And of course, the music and the sounds that our parents sing to us, which is really, really important. Right now, there's so many families that are musicless, where the generations that have come before us were always singing to their children. Music was always a part of the growing and being part of a collective, part of one's culture. And I think my generation, which I think is the one like right after yours, right before yours, my generation was probably one of the last of this to have that be so embedded in childhood and through school, through elementary school, because that started disappearing in the mid to late 1950s and the 1960s, where music became extracted from our culture, from our educational system, and then basically put in place was electronic music as a substitute of community and family music making. And that's a really important thing to understand here.
Yeah, and also like the fame aspect, like these people sing and the rest of us listen.
Exactly, where music has turned into performance orientation. And it was never like that. It was never like that. It was always the collective singing, the collective playing, the collective dancing. You did not have passive listeners, which is, we have a whole collective consciousness now of passive listeners, passive watchers on your iPhones, on your iPads, on your computers, streaming music at the touch. Where is the playing of it on a daily basis? And of course, because to learn an instrument is a discipline. It's not the kind of thing that just happens overnight. It's not instant gratification. To learn to master an instrument it takes time and it takes effort. So a lot of my musical background was stroked into place, layer upon layer upon layer, collectively through the family, through the educational system. And I explored multiple genres of music my entire life. So I went to conservatory, right? Music conservatory. I got a degree in vocal studies from the Mannes College of Music in New York City. And I was deeply involved in the early music and Renaissance music scene in New York City for a long, long time. And I have a big vocabulary. Okay. So that's my point. I have a big vocabulary. And what happens with people that are feeling these like musical downloads, and I tell this to my students all the time, it's wonderful to sing with your intuition. But your intuition, in some ways, is both limited and guided essentially by your vocabulary, because spirit can only speak through the words you know. Otherwise, they're speaking words in language you don't know. And for some of us, we're graced and blessed with the fact that we're so open. Like I think of Yogananda putting a book under his pillow and going to sleep and waking up and knowing everything inside of it.
Oh, wow.
I didn't have that experience. I wish I had. I would have done much better in school as a kid, But there's the sense of, when we're exposed and we're exploring and we're experimenting with our musical vocabulary, it just gets bigger and bigger. And then when we sit down, with a harp like this or a bowl, right, and we start to make sounds, we draw on that vocabulary. We draw on those culturally influenced ways of expressing ourselves. So, oftentimes when people hear me sing, they just go, "Oh, that sounds so ancient. It's angelic, but it reminds me of Hildegard von Bingen, the 11th century Christian mystic." And again, that's that taste of all of those years of singing early music that were in me that I was so deeply attracted to. That was a soul. I still sing Hildegard von Bingen to this day, just for my own pleasure, my own exploration inside of singing. So these things, when I'm quiet and the team is talking to me and I'm singing, there will be influences and tastes of that, flavors of that, because they know that that's a vocabulary that I understand. And I think they're speaking to me. It's almost like, remember what was some of those movies, and I can't remember the name of them, a Jodie Foster movie where they're learning the ET culture that's come in, and they're learning to speak, and they learn to communicate through sound, and they go do 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 do, and it's like, oh, and they sing back do 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 do. Well, they're creating a common vocabulary. So when I'm singing in that place, in that space where I feel the galactic connection, or I feel the angelic connection, I feel like they're communicating with me through my vocabulary.
No, I love that. That's so, that actually makes so much sense to me, because there was this moment where in college, because I always sang too. I was in choir and all of these, I was always singing. But then I had this moment in college where I was like, I had to choose, because I couldn't do like 2 creative things, or 3 creative things. So I had to pick like which creative things I was going to do. And I was like, well, I'm going to write, and I'm going to do my art, because I love visual art as well. And I realized it was this moment of choice, right? And so now that I'm going back and I feel that it's like, because with art, I don't have to, I already know the rules. Like I know all the rules with the art. I know I've colored inside the lines. I've learned juxtaposition of color. I've learned all of those things, but then now I don't have to. I can break all the rules. I can do whatever I want, because I know the rules now and I've practiced. And then it was kind of like reminding me about how on the spiritual journey, of course, it's such a new experience. When you go on it, you've got to learn from people. At least I did. I needed to immerse myself in the four agreements with Don Miguel Ruiz, for example, and like read that book 30 times until like now that's just old hat. It just comes right out of me. And I just know it. So yeah, this like, you've got to practice, people. Like everything you want to do that's like so gorgeous, that all comes from, that genius comes from first stacking the library filled with the books, first stacking the musical library filled with the notes and the practice and how to intone and how to not do a hard T, and all of these things that we learn when we sing, right? That's beautiful.
Well, I tell my students the story of Luciano Pavarotti. Remember the great tenor? He died, I think it was like 2003 or 2006 at some point in time. But he was one of the greatest tenors of our time. And he died of pancreatic cancer at the age of like 72 or 74, something like that. And 3 weeks before he died, he was still coaching. He was still studying with his coach. Okay? And he had started singing like in the womb practically. Okay? And I feel the same way. I still study voice. I still have a teacher. I still explore new ways of and learning of making music. And recently I realized that I wanted to go back and play piano again and just really look at the works of, it was particularly Bach was on my mind. I just read the book by James Rhodey called Instrumental. It's an incredible book. If you've never, have you read it? Oh, you must. It's like it's a phenomenal book about his journey of awakening. And he's a brilliant classical pianist who had major mental breakdowns due to child abuse. And this was the story of him literally finding himself and healing himself through music. And it was profound. And I was reading his story, and so many things, clicks and ahas kind of woke up inside of me. But there was also the remembrance, the love that I have for Bach, the composer, J.S. Bach, who was an 18th century Baroque composer, probably one of the greatest composers in Western musical history. And the beauty of linear counterpoint moving together, these just melodic lines that just they weave and they dance inside of each other. And when you sit down at the piano and you actually play these, and my piano skills are, I would say, pretty rudimentary, but I had to study in conservatory, and I had to I play for myself and have been for years. But the whole process of sitting down and playing Bach and feeling the music and the melodies going into two hands, right hand and left hand. In those years when I was first studying piano, it was just such a chore, right? But now that I know what I know, and my my maturity, my life experience, my love and passion for music, which has just grown exponentially over the years, now for me to sit down and play, it's like, oh my goodness, feel what's happening in my body. Just inside the simplicity of doing this little two-part invention or prelude, I can literally feel like the neural synapses. I swear to God, I can feel them just like going.
That is so cool that you can detect that now. That's so amazing.
It is amazing.
It makes total sense what you're saying. I completely, yes, of course, because it's flowing through you.
Well, it's
through your hands.
It's going in your hands. It's going in the eyes. It's going into the ears. So it's going into all the neural pathways. It's affecting the vagus nerve, right? It's going into the cerebral spinal fluid. So the whole consciousness of the composer, which is like, here J.S. Bach was writing back in, this pieces he was writing back in 1730, 1720, something like that. But he was so brilliant, and he was so connected with the divine transmission coming through him with that musical language again, right? And when you listen to like the Goldberg variations, or you listen to, the unaccompanied cello sonatas, or the violin or the Brandenburg concertos, and you listen to the complexity of what is being woven together and the stability that creates in the nervous system, it is amazing. It's amazing. There is so much that music has to give us. It's profound.
And even if you aren't an expert, like you don't have to be, right? I mean, to sing a song around the campfire is so beautiful. I know that I participate in some plant medicine ceremonies where, like at the last direction, everybody has an opportunity to sing or share a story or a poem or something that they wrote. And there's been many times when there's been someone, I have a very strong voice. So when I sing, it sounds beautiful and melodic and all of this kind of stuff. But there's been times when somebody has sung who had less confidence in their voice, let's say, or less training. And their song was so amazing, the way that they were just embodying the feeling of it and communicating through their whole being. This song, this so humble transmission that it brings me to tears because it's so powerful, the way they were able to do that. And, so you don't have the best voice, to touch people with your song. I mean, so let's sing, like you were talking about, like we've gotten into this habit of, I don't know, like saying, well, I must not be meant for that because look, that person's so amazing, like this comparison game, and just like, let that go. Because what you're saying, what I'm hearing you say is that the experience of producing the music, of letting it come through you, through your voice, through your fingers on the piano, through your interaction with the crystal bowl, your personal journey with the music is what is even more awakening than simply listening to someone who's been doing that.
Yes, that is absolutely the truth. Absolutely the truth. Dr. Mitchell Gaynor, who did all of this work before he died on sound healing, he was the chief of oncology at New York Hospital. And he brought in early on in the kind of, current sound healing regenesis, he began bringing in Tibetan bowls and quartz crystal bowls into his practice. And one of the first things that he did to people that were receptive to this was he sat them down in his office, and he put a crystal singing bowl into their hand, and he taught them the rudiments of toning and singing with their bowls. And the stories, the testimonials that come out of this, as people they were finding their soul song. I don't know if it's a soul song. I really am not sure about that, because there is so much of when we are sounding with sound bowls or with didgeridoos or with harps or with drums, there's so much that is being cast off in a release of what you call in your book, that human crust. All right. And music therapy, sound and vibrational healing has a lot to do. It can be just a profound support and adjunct in any kind of therapy to help break through the crust. We spend so much time as a collective culture now, particularly in the West, closing down the voice, shutting down the voice, keeping ourselves silent, or comparing our voice with the great performers and the digitalized or perfected digital sounds of artists, where you can't sing a wrong note anymore. It's forbidden. We're going to take the electronic tuner and tune you up so that your sound is perfect. And most people don't realize this, but probably 100% of what you listen to when you listen to recordings these days has gone through tremendous electronic adjustment to make sure that you're listening to the most perfect sound that can be produced. And so it's not a real, authentic, flawed experience. It can't be. And now we're so practiced in it. It's the norm, right? So,
even when the artists are coming out there live, then they've been caught sometimes lip syncing, right? To have it be perfect and exactly the way it was recorded, as if that's the most important thing. But I don't know. I feel I have a different perspective, from the shamanic healing work. Is like those songs come in the moment. They come for that person. They come for that person's heart and that person's healing, and they just come through. And I don't know those songs. They just start to come through. I mean, this is really new for me, because before that I was practicing and rehearsing Icaro songs that were recorded, and I was learning them from my teachers. But since last November, when I made that prayer, like they're just coming through now. And I'm just being invited to trust them and follow, just even if all I can do is sing da 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 la 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 la, whatever sound I can do to follow the melody of it. But like that song has power for that person. I don't even know why it has power, but I know it does because I get body chills like all up and down my body when I'm singing it for that person. It's kind of intense and beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, we could just allow ourselves to be, right? I mean, that's what our ancestors did. They didn't have recording devices. No. They didn't have ways of like recording it to sing it perfectly, you know?
They didn't. But there was also like the gathering of sound making.
The gathering.
Such a normal part of life. You didn't have television. You didn't have big public concerts. So what did you do on a Saturday night? Well, you got together as a community, as a village, and you got your instruments out, and everybody danced, and everybody sang, and everybody played music. And this was what we did. We didn't go to the movies. We made music.
We made music, and we didn't wait for somebody else to make it. We did it dove in and did it too.
We did it ourselves, and little kids were drumming, and little kids were dancing, and you know we still see this in the Native American traditions. My daughter-in-law is married to a Navajo man, and her children were raised dancing in you know they were raised dancing. They I can't remember the kinds of dancing they did. I think turtle dancing or crow dancing. I don't remember. But you know that's how children were raised, and they were raised to play the powwow drums, you know. And we used to do that, you know. We used to do that as a Judeo-Christian culture, and we don't anymore. We don't.
Yeah, and when we shut our voices down, I mean that's when we lose our hearts just a little bit. It's like that.
A little bit.
Oh
my God!
Speaking what needs to be spoken.
I think that's an understatement.
We lose our hearts completely, and we want to die. I mean, let's just be honest. I'm trying to be gentle, but I mean that's the truth. And we don't, you know, and so many women now. And speaking of Judeo-Christianity, like that whole swath of humanity has just gotten this really sadistic message about women, you know, and women. Yeah. Women are sinful, and women cause the whole fall of the earth, and they need to suffer, and all this kind of stuff that's still lurking in the background of every church, even if that's not what's being preached. It's still there in the cosmos of it, you know, and we women feel it, and we're like, we are not supposed to talk about this, or you can't say that, or you can't just start singing. Right. That's not okay. You have to have permission. You know, like you can just start dancing down this. You have to have permission to do that. Yeah. You know, and we like stuck in this need for permission instead of following our hearts and letting our voice be heard and our hips move and sway and belly dance if we feel like it, you know, and let our bellies be poochy if we feel like having to be poochy, and, you know, just kind of accepting the whole mess of being a woman in this deconstruction of this whole system of pain. I just feel like this is why all of these beautiful tools are coming for us now, and coming for us for our healing through feminine teachers. Look at you, this beautiful divine feminine teacher with the crystals. You know, this crystals are, you know, pretty much everyone's first stop, right, on their awakening process is the crystal shop. Like, give me some crystal.
I don't know. Mine came through the balls, so I went balls crystals. So.
Crystal balls. You're like balls, crystals. They go together, and you know. But so many people, this is where they meet. You know, this is where they start to wake up. Is the stone kingdom, the crystal kingdom, and this is powerful healing. Talk a little bit about, because I know we're about ready to go, like in a little bit, but we have a little bit more time. What do you want to tell us about crystals? Because I know that you have very passionate relationship with crystals and how healing they are. What do you want to share with people about their, you know, any little thirst they might have for crystals?
Well, can I talk about crystal singing bowls?
Yes, crystal singing bowls, please.
So just imagine that you could take your most favorite crystal that you love. Let's just say it's amethyst, or it's rose quartz, or it's chrysoprase, or it could be turquoise, it could be citrine, it could be diamond, okay? And you could put it into a form where you could actually hear what it sounds like. And when you place it in your hand, you can feel what it feels like. And when you play it, all that vibrational frequency of that consciousness goes into your cells, literally into your DNA, literally activates the skeletal structure of your body, which is crystalline in nature, activating and opening the pineal gland, which is crystalline in nature. Your whole body like an antenna receiving the frequency of that vibration. So it's not simply and here I have a piece of iolite. So it's not iolite, it's actually blue tourmaline. I'm holding that in my hand. So instead of this passive experience of just feeling this vibration through my palm chakras, where I'm just quietly sitting, meditating in openness, it's going through me like this. That's the experience of an alchemist.
Okay, now that's very alluring because I mean, we know what it's like when, maybe you guys don't, but I do. And I'm sure many of you that are listening here, you're also in love with crystals, just guessing. But, when I work, there's some crystals I work with, like Lemurian crystal or some other ones where I just put one on my forehead and one in my hands and on my heart, and I just lie back covered in crystals. And then I just sit and meditate, right? And I can feel them just like pulsating through my body and like opening everything up. And by the time I get done with this half an hour meditation or whatever, I've just been lying there, but I have been wafting in and out of consciousness, just like whooshing out, right? And feeling the power of these amazing portals of transcendence in my field and on my body. And I feel like a totally different person when I stand up. So now what you're saying is that, and like times that by 10 or something.
Like here. So I'm going to give you something, Carrie, because I have to, right? So here.
Oh, we're going to get this.
Like, oh my God. Can you see this?
Yes, I can. I'm going to mute myself so it comes through.
So this is Lemurian seed on gold. Okay, this is a Lemurian seed crystal in an aqua aura gold. So it's holding the high heart turquoise frequency, right? Could you hear it?
I could feel waves of ocean. Like it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Just like mermaids and mermen, just like waves and waves of watery fluidity.
Yeah.
Wow, really beautiful.
So this is a way to experience crystal in its sonic form. So
yeah, and there's like a memory that triggers too for me. Like I was seeing that and I was like, oh, this is what it felt like too. Because it's also what it feels like.
Exactly. And so this is like the memory of Lemuria. And so
wow. That's so amazing. Wow.
Yeah. So
now I'm thirsty for crystals.
They only made 2 of these.
So amazing.
I have not seen a single one like this particular one. We have Lemurian seed crystal bowls that are smaller than this, but this is just like this glorious one of a kind being. But yeah. And so, the beauty of this, right, if you can see the stem.
Yeah.
Okay. So the stem is pure quartz crystal. So I'm holding pure quartz crystal in my hand.
And does that vibrate your hand as well when you're playing?
Totally. Vibrates your entire skeletal system.
Wow.
Right into your bones. It's going everywhere. The sound is going everywhere. And of course, if I'm using this is a practitioner bowl, and then if I want, I can just direct the sound any way I want in my body, right? Or if I'm working with a group of people, I'm doing a sound experience or meditation or a personal session with somebody, I can move this sound. You can clear and balance, tonify, you can sweep the aura with this, you can, wherever you are directed as the practitioner. This is for, professional use, but really, I sit, I hold this bowl, I play this bowl for myself. I just feel it. I feel it in my heart. I can place this right over my heart. I can shift and move the energy. I can spread it out. I can rest in it. I can really just simply play the sound and rest in the sound. This is an experience of crystal that is very different. It's almost as if the consciousness of the crystal kingdom itself just delighted in being able to experience itself in a new way. And so instead of this kind of two-dimensional consciousness of the stone kingdom, it was like, well, what happens if we shift form?
Yeah, and bring all that healing in the sound, and everything comes back to sound anyway. Sound is the original creation, and so the sound is very healing, bringing us back home again.
Bringing us back home.
A different kind of dinner bell, if you will.
But then John Beaulieu, who's an amazing sound healer, he created these little, tiny crystal tuning forks.
Oh yes.
Where you can take the tuning fork, and you can.
Yes, I've had people do that. Yes, and if you're listening and not watching, what she's saying is that the tuning fork can actually be vibrated and then placed on a certain crystal close to one of your chakras, for example, where you might need some healing.
This one actually makes sound when it's played on it. I don't know if you can hear it.
Oh, very cool. Yes.
So I'm not tapping the tuning fork and then vibrating it. As soon as I put it on it, and it only works for crystals, it vibrates the frequency of the crystal through the tuning fork.
And that is also really healing. Yeah, I've had that happen during vibrational healing sessions with some friends of mine that do that. That's so powerful. Oh gosh, I just love you so much. I'm so grateful for this interview and all that you shared. I got to swim with the mermaids in Lemuria. This is a very awesome broadcast. What else can I say? If you want to swim with the mermaids in Lemuria, listen to this broadcast. So gorgeous. So I know that you have so much to teach people about these crystal bowls and healing. And I'm definitely going to give people your website and all your links and everything. And you have a free gift, actually, an excerpt of the new Crystal Singing Bowl ebook that you're writing and putting together. So tell us a little bit about that before we head out.
Well, so many of my students over the years have just asked me and to put something together because they had all these questions. And when people first enter into the world of crystal singing bowls, they have a lot of questions. Well, how does this work? What are their benefits? What do I do? When you walk into the world of crystal bowls, it's overwhelming now because there's so much to learn, to experience, to grow. And so I wanted to give that. I wanted to respond to that need. And I started out by going, by saying, well, I'll just do a little tiny ebook, and it turned into 160 pages. It's just like, it went like that. So now we have a really bona fide book with a cover, and it's getting printed, and we're going to have an ebook version, and it's coming out. I think December 9th is going to be the date that it gets released, or right around the first, second week in December. We're just putting the last tiny little, things on it right now, but the cover is beautiful. The photographs on the inside are just amazing. There's all kinds of topics in there on, what are the benefits of playing, and what about, how do I balance my chakras, and, all these questions that people ask me about bowls when they're first kind of coming in. What are alchemies, and what do they do? And, what's the best way? And can I play for my pets? Can I play outside? How do I travel with my bowls? It's that kind of thing. So if you have ever thought about crystal singing bowls, if you've ever wanted to learn about them, this is a brilliant place to start.
Fantastic. Yes. And it saves you from answering all those questions. Just give me the book. Here's the book. Read the book. I'll see you later. Got other things to do. I'm going to go be with my crystal bowls now. So well, awesome, everyone. Gosh, what a great episode. I know you people think this episode was fantastic. Come on now. So share it out with all your friends who are addicted to crystals. Share this out, and let's spread some more crystal love on the planet. I think we all agree there can be more love. We can handle more love. Let's have more love, more healing, more joy, more high frequencies, more ascended vibrations coming through into our hearts, and opening our hearts to be more kind to each other. So share this episode out. Thank you so much for doing that. Leave us a review and a like and a share and all the stuff. Appreciate you. And by the way, here comes your kisses. I did not forget. Your kisses are coming. Would you like to join me in giving everybody kisses? Here they come, everybody.
Here we go.
Love you so much. And we'll see you guys next time on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now.
If you found even one gold nugget in this episode of Soul Nectar Show, will you do us a favor? Will you subscribe, like, and share this episode? Maybe even write a comment and let us know what you thought about it. We really, really want to engage with you at a much deeper level. Let's be part of community together. Have a great week, everyone. Bye for now. To dive in deeper to nourishing conversation, visit soulnectar.show.
Soul Nectar Show. Awaken, Nectar Show. Take a sip from the drip of nectar, from the source of who you are. Soul Nectar Show. Yeah.